The FAIR Act of 2025 has ignited a firestorm of debate in Washington. This ambitious legislation proposes a radical overhaul of the U.S. tax system. Its most striking feature is the complete elimination of income tax. This idea has captivated some and alarmed others. Proponents see it as a path to economic liberation. Critics fear a fiscal nightmare. The FAIR Act aims to replace income tax revenue with tariffs on foreign goods. This shift would fundamentally alter the relationship between the government and its citizens. It also raises profound questions about America's place in the global economy. The Act's proponents argue that it will usher in a new era of prosperity. They envision a resurgence of American manufacturing and a lighter tax burden on individuals. Opponents counter that the FAIR Act is built on shaky foundations. They point to the potential for trade wars and economic instability. The debate over the FAIR Act is not merely an academic exercise. It goes to the heart of America's economic future. Understanding the implications of this bold proposal is crucial for all citizens. The Internal Revenue Service, often perceived as a monolithic entity, plays a crucial role in the American economy. It is tasked with collecting taxes that fund government operations, from infrastructure projects to social programs. In 2024, the IRS collected a staggering $5.1 trillion from individuals and corporations. This figure underscores the sheer scale of revenue generation required to sustain the government's current spending levels. After accounting for refunds and credits, the IRS netted approximately $4.5 trillion. This substantial sum represents the lifeblood of government funding, supporting a wide array of services and initiatives. The FAIR Act's proposal to abolish the IRS would necessitate finding alternative revenue sources to compensate for this loss. The potential economic and social consequences of such a drastic change are immense. Critics of the FAIR Act argue that dismantling the IRS would create a massive void in government funding. This, they contend, could lead to cuts in essential services or a dramatic increase in the national debt. The FAIR Act proposes to replace income tax revenue with tariffs on imported goods. While seemingly straightforward, this proposition faces a daunting mathematical reality. In 2022, the US collected a mere $11 billion in tariffs on $3.35 trillion worth of imported goods. This stark contrast with the trillions collected through income tax highlights the sheer scale of the challenge. To bridge this revenue gap, tariffs would need to increase dramatically. Preliminary estimates suggest an astronomical increase of over 130% would be required, based on 2022 figures. Such a steep hike in tariffs would undoubtedly have profound effects on the prices of consumer goods. The feasibility of generating comparable revenue solely through tariffs is highly questionable. Even with substantial tariff increases, it is unlikely that the revenue generated would be sufficient to offset the loss of income tax. This raises serious concerns about the economic viability of the FAIR Act's central premise. The FAIR Act's reliance on tariffs as a primary revenue source raises significant feasibility concerns. Even with drastic increases in tariffs, it remains unclear whether the government could generate sufficient revenue to maintain current spending levels. The sheer magnitude of the revenue gap suggests that spending cuts would be inevitable. This raises a crucial question. What programs and services would face the chopping block? Would it be education? Would it be healthcare? Would it be infrastructure? The potential social and economic ramifications of such cuts are immense. The FAIR Act's silence on this critical aspect further fuels concerns about its practicality. Critics argue that the Act's proponents are engaging in wishful thinking. They contend that the proposed tariff increases are unrealistic and unsustainable. Moreover, they argue that the Act fails to address the complex economic realities of a globalized world. Section 5. The price of protectionism. Impact on consumers. The FAIR Act's proposed tariff hikes would inevitably impact the wallets of everyday Americans. As businesses grapple with increased costs for imported goods, those expenses would likely be passed down to consumers in the form of higher prices. This could lead to a surge in inflation, eroding the purchasing power of households. Essential goods and services, many of which rely on imported components or raw materials, could become significantly more expensive. This would disproportionately impact low and middle-income families who spend a larger portion of their income on necessities. The potential for social unrest and economic hardship cannot be ignored. While proponents argue that the FAIR Act would boost domestic manufacturing and create jobs, critics counter that any such gains could be offset by job losses in sectors reliant on imports. The overall impact on the labour market remains uncertain and subject to debate. Section 6, a case study in steel lessons from 2018. The 2018 steel tariffs imposed by the Trump administration provide a cautionary tale about the unpredictable nature of trade policy. Initially, the tariffs led to a surge in steel prices, benefiting domestic producers. However, this effect proved short-lived. As global supply chains adjusted, steel prices eventually fell, eroding the intended benefits. Furthermore, the tariffs sparked retaliatory measures from trading partners, impacting other sectors of the US economy. This experience underscores the complex ripple effects of protectionist policies. Any analysis of the FAIR Act must consider the potential for unintended consequences and economic blowback. The steel tariff episode highlights the need for a nuanced and data-driven approach to trade policy. The FAIR Act's sweeping nature and reliance on a single policy lever raise concerns about its potential to navigate the complexities of the global economy. Section 7. Navigating the unknown. Uncertainties and Risks. The FAIR Act is shrouded in uncertainties. One of the most significant unknowns is how other countries would react to such a dramatic shift in US trade policy. Retaliatory tariffs from major trading partners could cripple American industries that rely on exports, leading to job losses and economic turmoil. The impact on specific industries is also difficult to predict with certainty. While some sectors might benefit from increased protectionism, others could be devastated by higher input costs or reduced access to foreign markets. The overall impact on the US economy remains a subject of intense debate. The FAIR Act represents a gamble with unknown consequences. Its proponents argue that the potential rewards outweigh the risks. However, critics contend that the economic well-being of millions of Americans should not be subjected to such an untested experiment. Section 8, a silver lining, potential upsides for domestic production. Despite the potential downsides, the FAIR Act does offer a glimmer of hope for certain segments of the US economy. The proposed tariffs, if implemented, could provide a much-needed boost to domestic manufacturing. By making imported goods more expensive, the Act could incentivize companies to produce goods within the United States, potentially leading to job creation and revitalized industrial hubs. This potential for domestic growth is a key selling point for the FAIR Act's proponents. They envision a resurgence of American manufacturing driven by a renewed focus on homegrown products. This, they argue, would strengthen the national economy and reduce reliance on foreign supply chains. However, it's crucial to acknowledge that this potential upside comes with significant caveats. The success of such a strategy hinges on numerous factors, including the ability of domestic producers to meet demand, the willingness of consumers to absorb higher prices, and the absence of damaging retaliatory measures from trading partners. Section 9. Balancing Act. Weighing the pros and cons of the FAIR Act. The FAIR Act of 2025 stands as a lightning rod in the national conversation about taxation, trade, and economic policy. Its bold proposal to replace income tax with tariffs has sparked both fervent support and staunch opposition. The potential benefits, such as a resurgence in domestic manufacturing, are undeniable. However, the risks, including higher consumer prices, retaliatory tariffs, and economic uncertainty, are equally significant. Ultimately, the decision of whether to support or oppose the FAIR Act requires a careful weighing of these potential benefits and risks. There are no easy answers, and the long-term consequences remain uncertain. As the debate over the FAIR Act continues, it is essential for citizens to engage in informed dialogue, considering the complexities and nuances of this far-reaching proposal. The FAIR Act represents a gamble, a leap into the unknown. Whether it ultimately proves to be a boon or a burden for the American economy remains to be seen. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more.